$400 to build a gaming PC in 2022. Yes, you can. Let's go. Alrighty guys, so here we have a living and reproducible example of what you can get if you're willing to hustle for some PC parts in 2022 and build up a gaming PC for just $400. But by the way, if you haven't seen the previous content on this build, then be sure to go back after this one, links in the description of course, to see where and how I hunted down these parts in the live stream where I built up this PC. But also, speaking of live stream guys, I have such a great time doing that and I love interacting with my community while building PCs. So if you haven't been able to catch me live, then make sure you check out the next one that will be coming because I have such a great time doing that and I love interacting with you guys. But anyway guys, let's jump right into this build. Let's talk about each individual part, where I got it from, what I paid for it, and most importantly, stick around to the end where I cover benchmarks and show just how well this $400 PC will perform. So starting with the motherboard, I actually took to eBay first to find that part, and it was a cheap one at $35, but before I even had a chance to buy it, it was gone. That is kind of the game you play with eBay, but alternatively, I was able to go over to Amazon Warehouse and find a new motherboard there for a decent value at $50, and we've got the MSI Pro 2 Max B450. Now this motherboard is nothing to write home about given the budget we're working with, so some sacrifices had to be made. However, this is still a great board. It is on the B450 platform, which allows us some overclocking features. It's a more expansive chipset, which allows for some higher tier CPUs to be used in the future, but ultimately, it just offers everything we need to get a budget PC up and running. Honestly guys, the biggest weakness I see with this board is the fact that it only has 2 DIMM slots. Most boards contain 4 unless you get more towards the budget side of things, but that's exactly what we're after here, is just a budget motherboard that can get the job done. So next up we have the CPU, which is the Ryzen 3 1300X. I managed to pick up this part from my local used markets for $70, but without a cooler. This CPU is also nothing to write home about either, having only just 4 cores clocked at 3.5 gigahertz to work with, but should offer plenty of horsepower for what we're after here, being some mild 1080p/esports style gaming. Now honestly, I think this is a pretty fair price for a Ryzen 3 1300X at $70, though I would like to see it go a bit cheaper than what I paid for, especially considering I also had to go fund a Wraith cooler on top of that. However, considering all that, I think this is a pretty fair estimate of what you guys should be able to come to expect when bargaining within your local used markets or even online. So moving on to RAM, which was a bit of an adventure in its own. If you guys had seen the previous videos, being the parts hunt video and the live stream, I actually recommended by accident and glossed over a kit from T-Force, which was the right capacity, 16 gigs, was the right megahertz, 3200 megahertz, but was a cast latency 22 kit. So I definitely made a mistake there. I've since corrected that in the parts list, as I mentioned, but make sure you do your due diligence to double check yourself when you're buying parts. So ultimately what we landed on here is a 16 gig kit of silicon power 3200 megahertz cast latency 16 memory. This kit I found on Amazon brand new for a whopping just $50. Not only beats the original kit I made a mistake with by about $5, but also running at the proper speeds and latencies. Again, not a part to write home about here aesthetically. However, this RAM is perfect for what we're after here with this build. Next up for storage, still an area that is so cheap to buy brand new, I landed on a Team Group 512 gigabyte NVMe SSD for just $47. Brand new, purchased from Amazon. This drive quite simply just gets the job done. 512 gigabytes should be plenty of space to get a system up and running and have a good budget left in capacity to get many modern titles installed and running at their peak speeds. And I will stress it time and time again guys, RAM and storage are at their absolute lowest prices that I've seen in years. Take advantage of that. Get yourself an upgrade, build yourself a system, because this is the best time I've seen, at least for those particular parts. But onward to the elephant in the room, being the GPU. And honestly, I think we did get a bit lucky given our current circumstances of the market, but this is also why I cannot stress to you guys enough to take to your local used markets to find those deals that are out there, because if you're willing to do some hunting, you'll see that they are out there. You just have to be patient. So what did we land on here? Well, we've got the RX 560 4 gigabyte model from a local seller in my area that I paid just $100 for. But what kind of hurts a little bit is the fact that just a couple of years ago, I would pay nearly just only about half of that amount for this type of card. But this is the market we still live in. This though did fall within our outline budget, being of about $100 for a GPU, and we got lucky to get a little bit better card for sure. I thought that given our budget, there was no doubt in my mind that we would only be able to get a 2GB card. Now I understand this is a bit of a niche price and given the kind of card that we have in the current markets these days, but I don't think it's all that removed from reality that you can do something very similar. To give that statement a little bit of backbone, at the time of recording this video, there are these same kind of cards going on eBay for not much more than what I paid locally. So I think it's very reasonable to say that you could find something very close to this within your local markets too, or maybe even better. Power supply is up next, and what we landed on was a Thermaltake Smart 430 watt from Amazon, brand new, for just $30. Once again, not another part to write home about, just another part that simply gets the job done. This power supply though is one of a handful I have used in builds time and time again. I have nothing particularly negative to say in terms of reliability. The PSU just gets the job done. It doesn't win any particular beauty awards. As you can see, we have a bit of a ketchup and mustard thing going on, but it just gets the job done and it falls within the budget. And honestly, it's perfect for the circumstance. So to button everything up, we've got the case, which is a budget case, guys. It's a $40 case I bought from Newegg, and I'm a little confused exactly what type of case branding it really is. It looks like an old DIY PC design, or maybe it's ripped from DIY PC's design, or maybe DIY rebranded, but it's the HEC HC320. I don't know, guys, but either way, it's relatively good looking PC case. It does have a bit of some old looking design cues. However, again, just gets the job done. To be flat honest, guys, I was simply after something cheap here, and this one didn't look honestly all that bad, and given that we don't have any fancy RGB in this system, it works great. Though with that said, I think this case only has a place in the extreme budget PC building scene. It only has one installed exhaust fan, the metal is quite flimsy, it's pretty closed off, it has some almost archaic design structure stamped in. Clearly, this is an old design that has gotten simple refreshes over several years. So that does sum up the build, guys, and I had to say for $400, I'm pretty impressed with what we were able to get, although it being not all that super beautiful to look at. However, we're after function and performance. So with that said, let's get into those benchmarks. Well guys, that does it. Benchmarks are in, and for $400, yes, you can build a gaming PC. But if you're willing to spend just a little bit more, say about $200 more, then make sure you check out this video here where we've got a $600 PC that does quite well in some 1080p gaming.